You ever have one of those days where you feel totally drained, even though you got a full night's sleep? Or maybe you get hit with these intense sugar cravings that just come out of nowhere. Well, you are definitely not alone. But what if I told you the reason for all of it isn't what you think? We're about to dig into what's really going on.
Yeah, we've all heard it a million times, right? Sugar is the big bad enemy. But that's only part of the story. Believing the problem is just about sugar is kind of like blaming the rain for a flood, but completely ignoring the massive dam that's blocking the river. And that right there, that's the key question. We're going to shift our focus from the what, the sugar floating around in your blood, to the where. Because the real drama is happening at a place you can't even see, the very doorway of your cells. All right, so let's jump in and start taking apart this huge misconception about sugar. We're going to uncover a silent problem, one that can go on for years and years before anyone even knows something is wrong. This is absolutely crucial to understand. See, high blood sugar isn't the cause of the problem, it's the symptom. The real issue is basically a mechanical failure. Think about it like this. Glucose is the high-octane fuel for your body's engine, but the fuel line is totally clogged. All that good energy is right there, but it just can't get into the engine to power anything. Okay, so if sugar isn't the main villain, then what is clogging the fuel line? Well, let's introduce the real culprit in this story. Lipids. Yep, fats. They are the reason your cells are literally starving for fuel even when you've just finished a big meal. Now, this whole state of cellular starvation, it has a fancy scientific name. Insulin resistance. But don't let the technical term throw you. The concept is actually really simple. All it means is that the key, which is insulin, doesn't work in the lock anymore. It can't open the door to your cells, and so all that precious glucose fuel gets stranded outside. So how exactly does this blockage happen? Well, it's basically a 5-step chain reaction. First, too much fat builds up around your organs, inside your liver. This isn't just passive stuff. It causes inflammation that makes the walls of your cells get all stiff and rigid. Think of a rusty, jammed lock. This rust gums up the communication system of the cell. So the special doors that are supposed to let glucose in, these things called GLUT4 transporters, they can't even get to the surface to open up. And the end result? Glucose is totally locked out. And when you put these two side by side, the difference is just night and day. A healthy cell is flexible, it's responsive. Insulin sends the signal and boom, glucose flows right in. The cell is happy and energized. But the insulin-resistant cell, it's rigid, it's inflamed. The signals are all garbled, blocked by these fat-derived toxins, glucose is locked out, and the cell is literally starving. So what happens when your cells are starving on a massive scale? This isn't just some tiny problem happening under a microscope. It sets off a huge domino effect throughout your entire body, an effect that you can actually feel every single day. And here it is. This is the big aha moment. Your brain is incredibly smart, but it can be fooled. It's not just counting the sugar in your blood, it's checking to see if your cells are getting fed. So when your cells aren't getting that fuel, your brain hits the panic button. It genuinely thinks you are starving, like you're in a famine. And your brain's reaction? It explains everything. It starts pumping out hunger hormones, which triggers those powerful, intense cravings for quick energy. Sugar, bread, pasta. You feel exhausted because your cells are running on empty. And all that unused glucose just hanging out in your bloodstream? Your body has to stash it somewhere, so it turns it into more of that dangerous visceral fat, which, you guessed it, just makes the whole problem worse. And maybe worst of all, your body gets so desperate for energy that it starts breaking down your own muscle. This muscle-wasting process can lead to a really dangerous condition called sarcopenic diabetes. Sarcopenia is just a medical term for muscle loss. Now, why is this so bad? Because your muscles are the #1 place your body stores glucose. They're like a giant fuel tank. So as you lose muscle, you lose your best tool for managing blood sugar. And that creates this vicious cycle of a slower metabolism and a disease that just gets worse faster. Okay, I know. That was a lot of bad news. But here is the really, really good news. This entire process is often reversible. The key, though, is to completely change our goal. We have to shift our focus away from just managing the symptoms and start aiming for total restoration. And this is the paradigm shift right here. The old way of thinking was all about just getting those blood sugar numbers down. But the real goal, the one that actually works, is to fix the root problem, to restore your cell's ability to let glucose in. It's about fixing the rusty lock,
not just yelling at the crowd of people piling up outside the door. So how do we actually do that? Well, it all boils down to these 3 pillars of reversal. Number 1, we've got to reduce that toxic fat that's causing all the inflammation. Number 2, we have to rebuild our muscle, which acts like our body's main glucose sponge. And number 3, we need to improve the sensitivity of those insulin receptors, so the key actually works in the lock again. All right, in this last section, let's talk about the actual path to restoring your cells and finally getting your energy back for good. Now, this next part is so incredibly empowering. Exercise is an absolute game changer because it has a secret weapon. It can open a special back door into the cell that lets glucose flood in without even needing insulin at all. It is a biological workaround that completely bypasses the broken lock on the front door. Just look at everything it accomplishes. Exercise physically helps clean out that toxic fat from inside your cells. It helps repair those broken communication pathways. It rebuilds that crucial muscle mass, giving you a much bigger gas tank to store glucose. And by finally feeding your starving cells, it naturally turns off those desperate, starvation-driven cravings from your brain. Now, you might be wondering, what about supplements? And things like magnesium or omega-3s. They can definitely be helpful. They can support this whole process of repair. But think of them as the supporting cast, not the main characters. They simply cannot do the heavy lifting that real lifestyle correction can. So let's just bring this all home with this one core idea. We have to fundamentally change how we think about this. This condition is not simply about having too much sugar. It is a condition of fat-blocked receptors, of muscle loss, and of deep cellular starvation. You know, understanding this really does shift everything. It's no longer about restriction or punishment or fighting your own body. It's about finally listening and giving your cells what they've been crying out for this whole time. So the only question left is, now that you know what they're really asking for, how will you answer?